Let's get to Tom Connell. He is at the touchscreen in Canberra, and we now have the final Senate numbers confirmed for this parliament. Tom Connell, there you are. We've just had confirmation of the New South Wales Senate. Is that right?
Yeah, we have. So the final numbers are in New South Wales. I'm a bit surprised by this, that One Nation have got the final spot. So I'll take you through where the votes come through first of all in New South Wales. So again, the top is how many they were at previously. Labor 2, this is 2019 to 2025, 6-year term. So you're comparing whether they hold onto their spots. Labor 2, Coalition 3, Greens 1. So again, as is the tail in most of the states, the Coalition go from 3 to 2, 3 spots down to just over 2 quotas. So when they're at, they're never going to get 3, they're never going to get 1, they're going to be 2. So then we get, the Greens will get 1 at 0.78, and then Labor, they're going to get 2. Their 0.63 was up against One Nation's 0.42. Normally that sort of gap is not the amount that One Nation can make up, but they have. So they've got the final spot in New South Wales, final spot there, the 6th spot. And that means they've got 4 senators overall. But there's a bit of a caveat. When we go to the overall position, this was our projected. This was looking at all the various states and territories and who was in the lead. We had Labor at 30, the Coalition there, or the Liberal Party at 23, National at 4, Greens at 11. The final results that have happened, Labor 28, One Nation 4. So there have been 2 upsets, if you like, not shocks. There was always a capability. We weren't saying this was set in stone. The Senate's just so much more complicated than a House seat to be able to make confident predictions. So Labor 28, One Nation 4. So what's going to happen with legislation? Remember, we need 39 for Labor to pass legislation. So either they get help from the Coalition, pretty simple numbers there, 30 plus 24, easily have the numbers, or they still have enough numbers just from the Greens. 28 Labor, 11 Greens gets them to 39. In other words, on the current makeup, this crossbench, even though One Nation is 4, is effectively irrelevant because they're not needed if Labor have Greens or the Coalition. And by themselves, they fall 1 short of going with Labor to vote on something. So right now, and we could have defections, obviously, whether it be from the Nationals, the Liberal Party, the Greens. Right now, the crossbench is basically irrelevant in the next term of the Senate as it stands right now. The other ones that were finalised, I'll just show you briefly as well, where One Nation also got 1. So a similar battle. Labor are on 2. They got 0.53 extra over that 2. So they're 0.53 of a quota. They're trying to get up to 1 through these exclusions. One Nation 0.41. They made that up, One Nation. That wasn't a surprise, but only by about 10,000 votes. So that was really, really close. And that's why that gap of 0.12, you sort of thought, well, they're just getting there. They're going to struggle in New South Wales where the gap is 0.21, 0.63 against 0.42, but they've done it. So obviously a better preference flow from the rest of that vote. As all these parties are excluded, One Nation has managed to move ahead in New South Wales. So in the end, it was really lucky that Labor did manage to get this 6th spot in Victoria. Again, It was very close. It was about 500,000 to 470 votes on that final exclusion. Labor's 0.43 just got ahead of One Nation's 0.31. So the difference in the end was 30,000 votes in Victoria out of millions of votes. Got Labor the 6th spot and has meant they don't need to go to the crossbench for now in this Senate, in this Parliament.
Wow, very interesting indeed. So it will be the Greens as the gatekeepers there, unless the Coalition deals itself out of relevancy in every single review of a vote. But we will see. What about the House of Reps? Because there's 2 recounts going on.
There are. Look, Bradfield's moving along. This one is going to take the best part of 2 weeks, and we just have absolutely no idea where this is going. So look at this, 3 votes.
Oh, wow.
Is the lead from Giselle Captarian. She was in the lead by 8. She got up by 14. The first 2 or 3 days, I was just thinking, is there a trend here? And sometimes if one side hasn't had as many scrutineers when they're going through votes, you get more knocked out on the other side. And if you're getting that trend, you go, well, it's all going one way. I thought that might have been happening early, but it's not. It's come back to Nicolette Buller. And both these tallies are going down. So for these recounts to explain, we don't start at 0. They count every single vote again, but they just correct for any changes. So what's happened is both candidates have lost about 70 as they've found informal votes out there. We're not talking about piles in the wrong area. At this stage of the vote, that's very, very rare. It's just informal votes. They're finding votes that they're contesting.
Right. So what happens there, Tom? The scrutineers just get really serious and they argue over what counts as a formal and informal vote, and they're looking at every single tiny dot on the page, are they?
Well, yeah, exactly. So scrutiny is all the way through. They knew it was close, but in the interest of it being expedient and getting it done, they might look at a thing and go, oh, yep, that looks like a 6 to me, that's fine. And they both sort of pay them as they go through. Once it gets this close, they have a very close look at it. And they're not in charge. The scrutineers simply go, hey, we're questioning this. And then it's up to the AEC. So people out there on Twitter saying, oh, you know, one side's cheating. The AEC is in charge of this. So that's why both tallies are sort of going down. And right now at a similar rate. So at the end of this count, what will happen, if it's a tie, by the way, the AEC has to say to the Court of Disputed Returns, we can't get a result, over to you. They could look at the whole overall result and decide there are major discrepancies. They could award it to one side or the other, very unlikely, or they can go to a by-election, or they can order another recount. That's all up to the court at that point. So this is the final regular recount, if you like. It is close enough that it could be a tie. That's statistically unlikely, obviously, to end up. There's only one result that's a tie. But right now, you have to say it's in play.
So if it was 3 votes in it, Tom, I mean, can either side make the argument to have another recount or push it straight to the Court of Disputed Returns? I mean, is there that?
Yes.
Or is,
well,
yeah, right.
The AEC won't go to another recount. But you can get either side going to the Court of Disputed Returns and saying, this vote is so narrow, there was this correction we saw here, during the recount we found 200 votes that were not formal, this is too close. It's up to the court to rule yes, and then they'd have to either do another recount or void the result and have a by-election. So either side has to make that. The AEC would say, here's our vote, we've been really thorough, we've had a recount, a full recount, here's the result. We have trust in that result. And then it's up to either party to make that case. So the closer it is, obviously, the harder it would be for a court to have confidence in the result. But it's not to say that if someone wins by 10, the court says, we've counted all these votes. That's the result. Go on. And then you'd also have to have either side do that. It's costly. It's a costly expense as well. So that's another factor. Not exactly overflowing the Liberal coffers at the moment.
Okay. And what's the other one? Goldstein, just quickly.
Goldstein. Yeah, that's it. Look, this is still at this stage and nothing to see here. Process. Where's the final? Yep, just seeing if it's changed. No, so 263. Tim Wilson started 260 ahead. We've had nearly every regular booth checked here. So you can see the pure number of booths here. There are a lot. They're only doing a partial recount. So they're only counting all the votes that have a 1 or a 2 next to Tim Wilson and Zoe Daniel. So we've had nearly all of the 45 overall have been recounted. They've gone in, to each one of these booths. They've checked all the votes. And there have been a few corrections along the way, but it's bouncing around 2 or 3 each way. That's all it's doing. The only way this flips, if we go back to the overall result at 263, would be not, Bradfield can flip just on a few votes. This is the sort of margin where you need a major error, either a pile of votes in the wrong area and they go, oh, whoops, this is labelled the wrong thing, or a data entry where previously they've put a pile in as, plus 20 for Tim Wilson, but it should be plus 20 for Zoe Daniel. But it would have to be an unusual and large error from here. So we're keeping an eye on it rather than, that's why I'm keeping it as a Tim Wilson or a Liberal gain, keeping an eye on it rather than thinking there's any realistic chance of this changing.
Tom, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. I really appreciate it.